Wild Randall here. You ever decide that you didn't like the color of your nylon hiking pants? Now surely you're using nylon. We all are. Give me an example of what I'm talking about. Here we go. Beautiful, huh? Oh yeah. Nothing like that really drab olive color to set you off. I mean, I understand drab colors when I'm hunting, but if I'm hiking, hey, I don't have to look like that. Well, you know what? There's something you can do about it. That's right. You can dye nylon, and I'm going to show you how. Step one, you're going to have to wash your pants. My God, do I really have to show you how to do that? I mean, seriously, I'm just assuming here, going out on a limb, that you have done that before. If you haven't, you might want to start with a new pair, all right? Speaking of new pairs, if they do have like that Teflon stuff on them, you probably ought to wash them 5 or 6 times. You can buy a commercially prepared dyeing pre-wash, which means it's going to take everything off of the clothes except the color so that they're extremely clean. If you don't do that, the dye won't take real well. Step 2, well, I'm going to light a fire. You can do this indoors on a stovetop, but I tell you what, I just like having the whole fire experience and being outdoors, and besides, my house doesn't end up smelling like dyes, which I don't want that to happen. So here we go. I am lighting a fire. I'm not going to show you how to do that either. Seriously. Step number 3, open a beer. Not mandatory, but highly recommended. I mean, you know, you ought to have some fun doing this, right? Step number 4. Let's make sure that what we're actually dyeing is made of the material we thought it was. This says shell, 100% nylon, and the mesh is 100% polyester. Now, this is a very important step because you can't use the same dyes for all different types of materials. Nylon is very similar to silk in its makeup. It's like a protein, so we're going to use a very special dye. Hopefully the stitching on this is not made of that same material, because if it isn't, it'll come out a different color, which usually is pretty cool. Alright, fire's going. The beer is not open yet. It will be. Well, waiting on my fire. You know, that's what I'm waiting on, my fire. Let's talk a little bit about the types of dye that we're actually going to use. I'm going to use what's known as an acid dye. Hey, I was just thinking, if you didn't want to make a fire, you could always use your gas grill. Cool. Beer. Still waiting on the fire. Once this gets down to some coals, I'm going to put some bricks on here, because I'm going to be putting a big pot of water on this and heating it up. Right? Hold my beer. Got it? You were just supposed to be holding it. If you don't have anything else to do, you can always work on your local red ant infestation. Die! This stuff isn't killing them at all. Well, there's thousands of them. Alright, that's enough of that. Yeah. Didn't work a bit. Turns out starting fluid doesn't kill ants. Yeah, I know, but he's 22. One beer isn't gonna hurt him. Right? Right. Right. Here we go. Here we go. Hey, so that fire's still burning. Ryan's still drinking his beer. Okay, so this is the thing I'm going to change. Now, let me show you some others that I've already previously done. Oh yeah, see, I told you it was 4th of July. Here, this is my burnt orange. This is a pair of Columbia pants. It's the summer weight. I really like that. And of course, I've gone over here. These, they look way brighter than they actually are. These are another pair of Columbia. And these were a yellow. One of that like really light yellow. Notice how the stitching maintained its original color as well as some of the other materials. That was because they were not silk. They were acrylic or polyester or something like that. So really what's neat about this, I got these really cool highlights. Huh? So far I've got a navy blue. This was my own custom color, a burnt orange. I mixed crimson and yellow. And I haven't decided what I'm going to turn these into. But you know what? It's going to be cool when I do it. Fire is about ready. Ryan is finishing his beer. That's the only one he's going to get. So what's the next step? Step number 5, you're going to pre-soak that. Whatever you're going to dye, we're going to pre-soak. Notice I've got this in a nice earthenware tub that I bought at a garage sale for like 50 cents. Okay, it's an old canning tub, I believe. And I've got the water, or I have my pants inside the water, and I'm just making sure that they get nice and pre-soaked. This is an important step. You want to make sure that fabric is thoroughly hydrated. Really. Now, how much water? Hey, they say just enough to cover the material that you're dyeing. So that's how much water I used. Did I measure it? No. You can if you want to. Alright, that fire looks pretty good. You don't want something out of hand. Time to do what we call is paste up the dye, which means I'm going to add a little bit of water to the dye and turn it into a liquid. Alright, so see, I've also, by the way, I've cut me some blocks of wood here to feed the fire as I go. So the next thing we're going to look at is pasting up the dye. I'm going to put that tub on there and let it start getting heated up while I do that. Time to paste up the dye. Now what am I going to do? First off, let's talk about it. I'm using Jacquard acid dyes. I know it's kind of hard to see because this stupid camera just does a terrible job of focusing up close, but that's what it is. I bought these from a place called Dharma Trading Post. I will go ahead and post that link for you. So they tell me with these particular dyes that I want to use a teaspoon for every pound of fabric to be dyed. Alright, well I got probably less than a pound. Alright, so first off, you need a non-reactive vessel, which means something that isn't going to absorb the dye or lend its molecules to the dye in any shape, way, or form. Ceramic's great, stainless steel would work. I'm actually going to use some standard stainless steel measuring spoons here. So, you know, I'm going to test this dye as I make it so I can get pretty close to the color I want. First thing I'm going to go with here is into there, and I'm going to come out with about, looks like a 1/4 teaspoon of the chestnut. Yes, alright. Next thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to go with a half, which is 2, of the crimson. So put that in there. Here we go. Notice I'm not like killing myself on this. This is a custom color. If you don't, dyeing is not an exact science, and duplicating colors are left best to the professionals, and I'm not a professional by any means. So what's the next thing? Well, we're going to get some hot water. Now this can come right out of the tap. It doesn't matter. By the way, any water that you want to use. I'm going to pour a little bit in there, and we can see what I'm looking at right now, which looks more purple than anything. You're going, oh my gosh, purple. Well, don't be freaked out about that. What we need to do now is agitate, and I don't mean piss off. Okay, so just a little bit of agitation. Notice as I spread it up the side here, I get a good idea where I'm at. Since I'm not Prince, I really don't want super purple. So I'm kind of looking at that. And the idea is that just like if you make gravy, you probably recognize this step as a roux, or even if you use things like cornstarch, we're looking for no lumps. So, and I keep looking at that. That is a definite grape purple there. You know, it'd be a good color for bubble gum. I don't think it would be a good color for my pants. So I'm going, gee, that is pretty dark. Now, my experience so far has been that it will always be a little lighter than this, because of course it's going to disperse into the water. But you know what? I'm going to add a little lightener agent, which means I think I'm going to go with just a tad bit of yellow. There, that looks better. That's kind of like I said, I want to go with the burnt crimson. Something that looks like blood, doesn't it? Well, it's not, but it doesn't. You know, again, while we're working with this particular dye, there's a reason they call it acid dye, and I have to go over safety. So, without any further ado, let's talk about that. Okay, a word about safety. When you're acid dyeing, you've got to wear the right personal protective equipment. Notice I've got on my Kevlar vest, I've got a face shield, a respirator, and I got some really big gloves. Acid dyeing is dangerous. You can't take any chances. Actually, that's a bunch of crap. You don't need any of this stuff. It's not that type of acid. Much for safety, huh? Yeah. You really don't have to worry about acid dyes. Anyway, here we go. I'm going to put that right in there. I'm adding the dye to the bath. And I'm going to rinse this all out. You know, you want to get all that dye in there. You paid money for it, right? There. So that is going to be closer to the final color. But remember, I'm not starting with white. So I expect it to be a little darker than that. Hopefully. We'll see what goes on. It is a pleasing color to me. That's what I want. Something close to that. So now, what's the next step? We're going to let this come up to 185 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we're going to add our fabric. I've got a candy thermometer in there, so I can tell what the temperature is. And right now, it's a little above 150 degrees, which I'm shooting for 185. But one of the things I've found, by the way, is that the hotter you get this bath, the better it dyes. So I'm really going to get it to where it's boiling. Hopefully you've got some high quality nylon that won't melt on you. Well, I got some tricks for that too. Doesn't look very impressive, huh? One of the other things is we got to keep our fire stoked. Alright, I'm going to put some more pieces in there. Notice there's some steam coming off her now. That's a good sign. I still haven't really told you why we call it acid dye though yet. Don't worry, we're going to get to the acid. See? Bellows. Alright. Got that side. Let's get this side. Don't breathe the smoke. Seriously. Or the vapors coming off that acid dye. They're a little harsh. Harsh. 175. We're 10 degrees from, you know, putting that stuff in there. And guess what? Looks like there's a thunderstorm rolling in. Well, I'm going to film all the way through it, by God. I can't stop now. More bellows. Alright. You know, you could go ahead and just stack up a bunch of coals around the outside. That'd probably speed things up. But I don't want to get this pot all sooty. No big deal. Notice I've set it on a couple bricks. These need to be terracotta bricks. Don't put concrete in there or pieces of stone that you don't understand or know the moisture content. You might have an explosion. That's not going to be good. It'd be fun, but it wouldn't be good. So now a word about acid dye chemistry. I really don't know what the heck's going on exactly inside that pot, especially when I add the acid. But it works. And there's a lot of stuff going on in there, and dye making is something that, again, is best left to the super professionals. And there's a whole subcategory, like 5 or 6 subcategories of acid dyes. This is just the basic stuff. We're not doing anything, I made my own custom color, and we're not doing anything super, you know, complicated here. There you go. So, look on the internet, tons of stuff. Stir sticks. They don't have to be good, they just have to be separate. I got a pokey stick for the fire, poke, 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 stir stick for this. I'm going to stir this up. Whew! Don't breathe it. Seriously, do not breathe it. That is going to be a pretty cool color. Ugh, it doesn't smell very good. Phew! Getting hot. Let's check the temp. 180. 180. We can go ahead and put that. I'm going to put the clothes in there now. Right now. Ha ha! The moment we've all been waiting for. The clothes are going. It's going in the dye bath. I'm going to get that stir stick. Remember I talked about that earlier. Don't forget the stir stick. And we're going to really poke this down in there. Poke it in there good. Don't breathe the smoke. Ugh. Yeah, you're going, would this be easier inside? It'd make your house smell kind of weird. So I'm going to really submerge it. Stirring is highly essential in this acid dye procedure. You need to get everything moving around in there as much as possible. Okay? Well, I'm going to keep stirring it. Keep the fire going. Keep stirring it. Right now you're going, I'm not impressed, Randall. Looks like mud. Well, that'll change. Well, now's a fine time to talk about some dyeing terminology. The dye people, that would be Dharma and Jacquard, refer to the dye as exhausting into the material. If you do this right, which I'm getting ready to put the acid in. Notice I have taken the thermometer out. But if you do this right, all the dye that is now suspended in that water is going to attach itself to all the protein molecules in the fabric. And that water should come out nearly clear. Now, you know, sometimes this takes a long time, and bottom line is it's whatever you're happy with. If you like the way the color is, then there's no reason to exhaust the dye. But these dyes exhaust really, really, really well. I've had a lot of luck so far. So let's keep stirring it. That's right, keep stirring it. Something you can notice here is the polyester, which is the mesh right there, is not taking up the dye, but the nylon is. Remember, I'm looking for a burnt crimson. I like dark earthy colors. This is going to be a winter pants for me. We want something that's going to absorb some sunlight as opposed to reflect it. So keep stirring it. I'm almost ready to add the acid. So let's talk about that acid, huh? What type of terrible caustic solution are we brewing here? Actually, it's pretty simple stuff. It sounds dangerous. I kind of made fun of it earlier, but guess what? We're going to use common household vinegar. It is time. So I've got about a quarter cup of white vinegar right here. And I'm going to pour it in my acid bath, which is approaching 200 degrees. Now, if this is important, don't pour it on the clothes. You ready for the reaction? It's pretty vigorous. Here we go. That's it. Yeah, don't get too excited. Oh, it's boiling! Let's get stir stick. We need to stir that. Oh, this is a lot more difficult when you actually have to film it. So stir it. Notice we're getting some foaming. This acid is going to act as a fixative. What that means is, for all practical purposes, it is going to increase the binding properties of the dye onto the fabric. That's why they call it an acid dye. Remember, it's not a big scary acid. I'm going to take the thermometer out now because it's kind of getting in my way. No, don't you dump on me. There we go. And continue to stir. If you want a really dark color, you want to leave this in this bath for up to an hour. Let me tell you what, I've never had to do it for more than 15 minutes, and it is dark as I'd really like it. But I'm going to cook it. I'm going to cook it, so I wouldn't expect the dye to totally exhaust. Now, if your dye doesn't exhaust well, and you're saying, gee, it's not taking up the color, I want deeper color, hey, throw a couple tablespoons of salt in there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that just for the fun of it. About that much. I'm using kosher salt. Guess what? That's because that's all I've got. I like kosher salt. Time to stir again. We ought to get another reaction, but not nearly as vigorous as the first time we put the acid in there. I have cooked that as long as I feel like cooking it. I don't want it to get any darker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out of the bath and put it directly in the washing machine. Now, you know, seriously, you don't have to watch this. But that's what I'm going to do. That's an important step. Don't skip it. Alright, you need to do that. Always wash it afterwards. Worried about getting rid of this dye bath. Now, I'm not going to let all that dye exhaust. So, what am I going to do with it? Well, I'm going to dump it down the sewer. But I'm going to let it cool down first. Okay? I'm not going to thermally pollute anything. On the way to the washing machine. You can't do it like this because, well, maybe you can. My washing machine's in the garage. See how hot it still is? That seems to be an important thing. In she goes. Put it down in there. I've already got the detergent in there. I'm using standard detergent. And, well, so I put it in the washing machine, huh? You're going to go, isn't it all going to bleed out? Let's take a look. Doesn't look like it's bleeding out to me. See? We'll stick our hand in there. Yep. That water looks pretty clear. Yeah. Time for the end result. Okay, there they are. Yep. And I think they do come out a little bit on the burnt crimson side. I'm pretty happy with them. Just so that you know, here is that burnt orange pear. Now this was a Columbia pear. This I got at Pro Bass, and I can't even remember what it was. It did not, tell you the truth, I like the color, but it didn't take the dye as well. One thing I do want to point out is take a look at that. Okay, these are old pants, and this is where I've torn them previously, and it actually, where they're torn, it took on a darker hue. Alright, so there you go. The burnt crimson. The burnt orange. I just missed the rain. I'm sure that would have upset my pH balance or something like that and caused a thermonuclear reaction. But it didn't, because I missed the rain. different things I did. Alright? So here's one of the first pairs that I tried. These are Colombian.